So you are actually learning how to be an expert of hazard. So what is defined by hazard? Basically, can be a source, situation, or act with potential harm in terms of human injury or ill health and or damage to properties. So you see and or. So we have seen some exercise on identifying situation, source or um, source of act or source of situation, or we haven't tried to learn how what is unsafe act or unsafe situation. That basically could uh, potentially means have the risk to inflict injury or ill health or damage to our properties or the combination. And not necessarily this injury, the severity of the injury does not relate with the uh, event of the accident. I mean the degree of the accident. So what tools that we use to identify? We use hierarchy identification, risk assessment, and risk control after we identify the hazards. And they are basically in this professional course, we look into 5 types of basically hazards. And we uh, measure the risk of each hazard that we have identified. And the risk is equal to likeliness or frequency multiply with the severity. So the both each parameter here, this parameter, one likeliness and second severity, has its own scale where we come out the qualitative value of the risk, and then we use a table to classify the basically the level of risk and choose the proper control measure. And this is the hierarchy of controls. You can see the effectiveness go down. as we go, if we look into the different types of the hierarchic measure, control measure, like for instance, personal protective equipment is less effective than administrative controls and so on. So I had given some cases. Okay, we can a lot. Yesterday, I think we look into like what is physical hazard, especially related to like mechanical hazard. So it has a lot of like related to two machines. Uh, so rotating machines, okay, especially exposed, they have level of risk, and we choose the proper hierarchy control based on the risk value that we obtain. But if we like look into this hierarchy of control, like for example, um, if we have a stamping machine, stamping machine to uh, we have a sheet of metal and a stamping machine basically press and create a structure or form, or to create a form or something. Uh, so if we eliminate that process, so that means we do not do that process in our manufacturing place. Perhaps we outsource. Okay, and substitute, okay, we use a different method rather than stamping. Other method less, but the issue is that when we use elimination, or we the probably when you use elimination means that we have to think about cost. What is the cost? If we outsource, does the cost reduce? If the yes, so you can go for elimination process or substitute. Maybe you cut down or divide the metal sheet into smaller portions, and then make the parts separately using smaller machine, not a bigger machine, so that basically substitute the uh, the the previous or the actual or the original stamping machine. If we choose engineering control, means that we put isolation measure, guarding. We have seen yesterday methods of guarding, point guarding, a point of process guarding means that we put a fencing around the machine, or we put something that restrict the reach of the operator. So we put engineering control that make sure the operator keep their hands off the stamping area. If so there's a lever, for example, on the side, the operator have to pull inwards toward his chest before the stamping machine can be operated. Administrative control, okay, if you look at the probably is in the stamping process, the risk related to number of hour and operator using it. So administrative control to make sure that workers stay focused and do not get distracted. Okay, they rotate. Like for example, one operator, they are given 100 batch, or within 1 hour, or they are instructed to time carefully the way how they do or perform the stamping process. Next, like the least effective, like PPE, perhaps supplying the but in term of stamping machine, PPE is not much very helpful if anything to happen. But at least, okay, due to requirement, okay, they must wear glove. They must glove to avoid any sharp edges on the metal sheet, or they have to wear goggle to if there any possibility of projectile when during the stamping process. So the measure that we choose, remember, okay, as we can look at the so the duties of employer to ensure as far as is practicable in term of time, trouble, cost, and physical uh, difficulty of taking the measure. So, so it is troublesome to provide uh, the safety control measure. So better to choose. If we choose a certain control measure is very troublesome, select the other method or proper least effectiveness, with least effectiveness, for example. So and so as we when working with safety, we have to look at the duties of the employers also, and also the duty of the employee. Of course, both have to be work together to identify the hazard. It's not just the manage. I mean, identifying the hazard is not just the task of the management, but task of everyone. Provided that the management or had given proper training how to identify hazard, like we seen so far, physical hazard. But we have not all we have seen, because due to the limited time, okay, like we did not see about vibration yet, though it is important. Pressure also we didn't see. Example like scuba diver, okay, they are exposed to pressure hazard, height, work at height, especially people who are working at buildings, skyscrapers, for example. Also we do not focus on this yet. And yesterday we just look at the biology, and we're going to continue on biology, and then we proceed with chemical and ergonomics. That what is going we are going to do before we. I think if it's possible, we cover all these three in 2 hours. So I invite you, if you have any question, you can just interrupt and ask on the topics. Okay, yesterday, no, not we is biology. We have looked into the biology, the definition yesterday, and we have that look into basically the factor affecting infection and exposure. So I think it's similar, okay, like we look into like the route of entry for chemical. So maybe we can see some relationship in the biology. There's the route of entry, where how this biological threat can get close to us or enter our system, like through our respiratory system, okay, or ingestion. Okay, you put inside your mouth, okay, touch or basically contact, where the threat or the biological hazard lands, or we accidentally touch the biological hazard. Ingestion, including injection by the vector, like Aedes. Okay, the Aedes carried by Aedes mosquito. Yeah, this respiratory system contact with body fluid of the infected, uh, and basically contact respiratory, and actually we could another one ingestion. uh, ingestion ingestion is coming to our mouth. Of course, respiratory, we use our nose and also use our mouth. Okay, ingestion means that the biological hazard, let's say on our food, and then we eat the food. So basically it get into our system, okay, through the uh, uh, ingestion. Okay, we eat through our mouth. Respiratory system, breathing process, okay, our mouth or nose, kick and contact. And actually this injection, contact with contact with people. This is not contact, this is inject. They are basically in contact through injection. So there are three major, you can, four is basically respiratory, ingestion or injection, and contact. Those are the route of entries into our system or body system. So that's why, like say in COVID-19, we have to wear mask, wash our hand regularly. So because COVID can get into our body system through respiratory, injection, and contact. Contact means when our hand have the uh, virus, we suddenly scrub our eyes or touch our nose. So those are the route of entry for this microorganism or bacteria or virus. We can say that inject can by vector like Aedes. So they when they bite, actually the virus is possibly transferred into our body system. So why we are talking at this biological hazard? Uh, so according to the 2005 study, about more than 320,000 workers die because of biological hazard, and at least 50% of all cases of cancer all over the world are caused by virus, bacteria, and parasite. So not this biological hazard could trigger serious illness like tumors or cancer. Some uh, some of them are harmful, some of them are very serious or very dangerous. Like this picture, look, as you can see, they are measles, but there are vaccine for measles. That's why, okay, in Malaysia, we had children are getting series of vaccines to fight the measles, and apparently, measles has emerged in countries like the Philippines because people has been some people has been ignoring the importance of getting vaccine due to sometimes uh, social media people are like honestly say okay things about anti-vaccine and so such. Suddenly people become an expert after doing googling or or doing some search on the topic. um and also there are other than COVID-19. Actually there are more dangerous disease like Ebola. Ebola is very but and with high mortality, like 83 to 90% people who got infected with Ebola, if not treated early, uh, could die. But okay, Allah has instructed Ebola not to be viral. Like COVID-19, the mortality rate is not is less than Ebola, but they has become viral. So we look into biohazard in different industries, healthcare. We'll look into the hepatitis, tuberculosis infections. So tuberculosis, like hepatitis, yeah, it could lead to industry or to workplace. But sometimes a workplace is very dirty or unhygiene. So worker could get hepatitis. Tuberculosis is a related disease to the lungs or respiratory system. It's quite viral. So that's why in Malaysia, any foreign worker must before they can get the permit, they have to do the medical checkup, check for any tuberculosis. So it could also caused by some material in the industry. It can easily transmitted from other people to for one people to other people. So the treatment is very intense or intensive. Uh, what I know, if people got tuberculosis, they have to take anti no anti sorry, they have to take antibiotic every day without miss. If they miss one day, they have to repeat. So it's very serious tuberculosis, and the symptoms like severe coughing. So like typhoid also. That's why any food handlers, any food handler must take the typhoid anti-typhoid injection. So and also there are others biohazard coming from animal bites. That's why, okay, do not, okay, think that you are strong or brave. If you're not sure, don't touch or don't engage or interact with animals. Okay, for example, like stray dogs, they could have rabies. Rabies is very serious. No? Rabies, people who got rabies is not treated early, they will get ill, and it's very saddening to see people got rabies. So they become suddenly very phobia to water. You can look it up yourself in YouTube or whatever. You see people with severe rabies, and if not treated early, it could lead to death. And agriculture, so there are infection microorganism associated with plants or animal, like there is uh, one liquid or compound called as Botox. If you ever heard of it, Botox. Botox, they use it to make the skin much relaxed and look younger. That is basically a derived compound from a microorganism. I forgot the name. It's like botulinum. I think the name botulinum. Microorganism. So they extract, okay, the compound to make it into Botox. So botulinum is when get infected with this, it will actually attack the nerve system. People will be paralyzed, and not only paralyzed in terms of the muscles, but paralyzed up to the respiratory nervous system, and then people stop breathing and could die infected by botulinum. That's why very important to keep your hands clean every time you handle or doing some gardening. even animals like tick, okay, that uh, carried by cats, for example, it can cause Lyme disease. So there are many others bacterial in the contamination in foods like fish, meat, poultry. I just want to advise you, like for example, eggs. Eggs. Always clean the eggs before you cook. Okay, the eggs is basically laid on the floor of the chicken farm or chicken coop, and then they put into the case they do not clean it, because if they clean it, it will deteriorate faster. That's why they don't clean it. So if you are handling eggs, make sure you clean it properly. If you look carefully, you look at the eggs, observe, are they clean or not? So that's why if you're handling eggs, hey, you must clean it properly. Uh, okay, so and this is important. I want to touch into this Legionella, okay, one of the disease or biohazard, uh, actually developed in the cooling tower. So AC system, central AC system, the one like in the big shopping complex or big halls, they have a cooling tower. Cooling tower, if you ever seen it, it's basically like uh, the water, okay, go through the process, and you can see it's like a waterfall coming out from the system and then go back to this. So Legionella likes, okay, to uh, sit or harbor inside the cooling tower. And when it was first discovered in early 70, it actually affected the main central air conditioner. So that's why many of the central air conditioner must be maintained regularly. So let's look at the biohazard, a possible biohazard in UTM. So there could be biological disease related to sharp injuries, like rusty nails, or even broken grinder. Uh, Basically, the grinder, there's a part that's used to grind the surface. It could the grinder disc, it could break, and it could end up in your basically, for example, hands. So it contain these could contain disease, especially rusty nails. If you, let's say, happen to get or step on rusty nails or any edges with rusty nails, go to the get medical attention and explain your situation, and you could be treated with tetanus vaccine or something. So those kind of it has a disease on rusty nails or broken grinder disc. There are disease that could cause tetanus. Tetanus, one of the symptoms is like you cannot you get fever and then your mouth cannot open. Okay, lock, your mouth got lock. Mold and fungi. So this is especially in damp places like under the kitchen sink or laboratory sink. So those are like damp areas, or sometimes like ceiling that is wet due to uh, due to um, water damage. So over time, it could develop mold or fungus or fungi. So some people are very sensitive to mold and fungi, but or, or everyone, if they exposed to this mold and fungi all the time, so you will develop disease. And then biological disease like dengue vector carry. Vector means transmitted by animal. Tuberculosis or transmitted from human to human. HIV also, SARS, transmitted to human, and so on. So this biological disease need a host to transfer. Like dengue needs the mosquito. Not all Aedes mosquito has the dengue disease, but only it has been found out that only Aedes mosquito carry the dengue, especially combined with very dirty and repulsive places where the rubbish is not cleaned up or properly managed. So there could be dengue. Specimen management, especially in the clinics, that's why the is labeled by biohazard. HVAC, basically the ventilation system. It could contain disease, also like the AC, cooling tower, waste management. So yeah, there are control measure to overcome this. So the biological disease related to needle and sticks, it could transmit infectious disease if like especially drug addict, okay, they share needles, um, or could happen due to during blood transfusion. But I strongly believe now the health standard has become very good. Procedure has been improved. Okay, so any blood donor, they will make sure there is no serious or infectious disease. Like, and then the other, like hepatitis B, can stay very survive on the environment for a long time. So that's why you have to clean your surface. Okay, hygiene. I think some of the points that I have explained, like injury due to rust equipment, okay, it could cause tetanus. So how we can avoid get injury due to uh, sharp edges or sharp points? So you have to follow the recommended SOP and where usually the safe operating posture require to use personal protective equipment. Okay, when you handle a grinder, use glove or use goggle. Okay, the it's or use a face shield, industrial face shield to cover most of your face, and then wear proper laboratory jacket or attire. So like lab jacket or lab coat, they have different the textile made of different material. They are not regular fabrics like lab coat. They are made to withstand corrosive action by if like say acid accidentally spilled on the lab coat. It can withstand much better than normal textile. Uh, so and then improve equipment design. For instance, you can operate your equipment remotely, engineering control. We so there's a robotic arm, for example. The robotic arm handling the biological sample. Okay, let's say you are handling the biological sample in the lab. Okay, so instead of you're directly handling the process, you can suggest robotic arm. But yeah, it's up to the as practical as it possible can as practical as can it be. And then effective disposal system. Use a special bin for sharp needle waste with signage. For example, bin. The bin is designed with signage. So there are proper signage, right? Put biohazard clearly defined. Okay, this is biohazard. Or maybe the bin is only can only be open. Okay, or the hinge can only be pushed one direction. Cannot be pull or whatever. And then also training is more important. Training with awareness. Training will like give you before you, let's say, before you operate anything or bio material, make sure you have a, good physical health. You are not stressed. You are not distressed. If you distressed, okay, go seek for help or medication. And then there are procedures. Okay, there are if you do one step and then move to another step, don't skip any important parts. And also use the right equipment for the right material. Okay, like this is more a few example we can see in chemical hazard. Yeah, so many example. And make sure all equipment is clean, sterilized before and after. That is the safe way, before and after. Don't expect other people to clean it. Don't assume that it was clean after or clean by the person before you, unless you are sure only you using the station or using the equipment. That's different, maybe different story. But it always good, okay, to clean the equipment before and after you using it, especially when you are sharing stations. So if you got injury caused by this by sharp equipment, please make sure there is no make sure there is no blood left in the equipment. Clean it properly. Um, of course, when you got injury, sometimes you are partially uh, capable to do it. That's why you inform and then check whether the equipment is rust or not. But it doesn't matter if like even you step on nail, long nails, it's not rust. You seek for medical treatment. You will get the tetanus injection. So for mold and fungi, the effects may be vary or may be different from person to person. Some people could seem to be immune, but we have to treat it as serious as possible. Whereas this mold and fungi can cause asthma, difficulty in breathing, headache, infection. Basically, it attack your respiratory system. And then it's not really fully understand about the effect of mold and fungi. But it is understand that fall and fungi happen when at area when it's very damp, uh, slightly cold and high in humidity, and with very poor ventilation. So that's why you have to make sure your area is try to open the close area as much as possible, and give good ventilation, clean the surface if possible. Like something to avoid mold, you can put water repellent paint, for example, or water repellent mold paint. Mold repellent paint. They are available. You can use, so that is a part of the engineering control. Oops. Yes, this is what I have explained. So moisture is one of the factors that contribute to mold and fungi. You have to find out where is the source of the moisture. Like I have experienced, my sink was very damp. Every time there are the floors inside the under the sink, under the sink inside the cabinet is always wet. I couldn't at first. I couldn't find the source or the why it's always wet. But eventually, I found out that the sink have micro holes. The sink itself, the surface of the sink surface is already have micro holes, very small holes. Cannot notice it uh, if you are standing away from the surface. Okay, when you carefully inspect the surface of the sink, you can see there are small holes. Okay, so that's visual inspection is the best way to find out what are the cause, and also follow the track, follow the pattern. It could lead you to the source of the moisture. Tetanus is actually due to the virus. It is basically frequently a fatal infection. This if not treated early. If like you just assume that when you step on rusty nails or anything sharp edges, is rusty sharp edges, you just assume that you're going to walk it off. But always get the tetanus booster, especially when you step on like rusty nails, splinter, and so on. This I've explained vector-borne disease like mosquitoes, and also like fly. Fly also can cause diarrhea or cholera. Diarrhea is basically the symptom. Cholera, okay, especially when during flooding. Housekeeping is the keyword. Always do communal work together. Clean up your area and sort everything together. Together to clean up everything. Common cold, but I think it's much we are talking more something serious, and then we are facing now is COVID. So one of the symptoms is common cold. Tuberculosis. This is bacteria usually cause an infection in the lungs. It could be affect other parts of the organs like kidney or part of the body like spine, brain. But commonly it will attack the lungs. So it's very infectious. It can easily transmit from people who got infected by tuberculosis or TB. So that's why in any family, if the family member got TB, everyone have to get TB vaccine injection. And a person who got infected have to be treated. One of the treatment is to take the to take the medication every day, antibiotics without fail, and need to know the type of your specimen by carefully labeling it with the proper signage in an information, and do not handle anything that is broken. I mean, in terms of the seal, if the seal is broken, do not touch or do not engage with the samples. These are actually common sense, like a toilet. If we work together, clean it up after you use it. So that is a good waste management. Um, Others like ventilation system. If it is not clean regularly, it could have biological hazards. And like I have explained, like rabies can from stray dogs and cats or animals, stray animals. If bird flu carried by birds.
Hello, doctors. Sorry to interrupt you, but the attendance form is not working. Would you please
Yeah,
check that?
because I close it. Why are you late? Is there any reason why are you late? Yeah, come on, give me reason. Just say it.
Sorry, doctor. After the prayer, I felt a little bit tired,
Mm.
so I slept and woke up like 5 minutes late. But I joined at 8:20. You can check from the Webex. I'm 5 minutes late. I was 5 minutes late.
So that's why you have to take this class seriously. You see, I actually, don't bother lah about attendance. So if you want to like take my class or do not to feel engaged, it's up to you lah. But I'm trying to deliver knowledge actually based on my experience. But anyway, I've opened the back the attendance. The main purpose is just to get your engagement. So now we have come to the most intense part of the course, which is the chemical hazard. Chemical hazard. Uh, Honestly, if you talk about this chemical hazard, does 1 hour is not enough, especially for chemists. It's a broad area. Very, if you look into this chemical compound that could exist in many form, like coolants, even in your car, coolants, welding gas, acetone. What kind of hang on? What kind of material have acetones? I think it's inside. Hang on. It's inside the nail polish remover, if I'm not mistaken. They are acetone. Uh, Even benzene. Is there any benzene there? Okay, benzene, like fuel. Actually, when you go to the petrol station, you fill up your car or your vehicle. Actually, you are exposing yourself to chemical. But it depends on the key point is to depend on the exposure time. So when we talk about chemical, so there are permissible exposure limit (PEL). So we this in is quite I mean in discussion in the chemical part here is technically very broad, especially in term of the how to handle and how to manage. It's not simple as handling hazard, physical hazard like chemical. You have to like storage, even dump disposal of the chemical have to be very careful. So in UTM, yeah, and not only in UTM, it around you, even around you, there are chemicals. Okay, Windows cleaner, all chemicals, and this basically they are standard in to in regular. There are regulation under the OSHA called USH that focus on the hazardous effect of chemical on the health. And those there are other one like class regulation. So we're going to look whether we can find it in this part. So this three example of lab that use chemical frequently in, I think this example was given because this slide is made by mechanical and I appreciate. And this is one example. So a lab that use this kind of chemical frequently, I think is true for other labs in UTM, like chemical for bonding. Like epoxy or hydrochloric alkaline, acetone, coolant, and composite lab, and material lab. In chemical, the list is endless. And so in this context of presentation, the term chemical, when we talk about chemical, is refer to chemical element or compound or mixture, whether natural or synthetic, but not that microorganism that is a part of biohazard. So we look into like chemical properties, whether organic or inorganic, the physical, solid or gas. Okay, and also we look into the usage. It's always important to know the awareness of chemical effect. So chemical of health effect to chemical hazard can be categorized into two types: acute effect and chronic effect. Acute, basically immediately the symptom emerge, like fainting. For example, okay, like petrol. Some people, when they inhale, the fume, they could get dizziness. So immediately they get dizziness, headache. And then another type is chronic. Chronic basically develop over the time. Maybe not now, later in the after 10 years, 20 years. So like this chemical, that's why you really need to know the classification or on the labels, or on the we call as uh, Msds. I think we're going to see what is Msds. Okay, the basically we're going to a material safety data sheet, Msds. So this is an effect of a type of acute effect due to hydrochloric acid. Some can be very severe and permanent and irreversible. It like goes inside your bones. So the chemical effect is very dependent on the level or amount of concentration of the chemical itself. How long do you expose to it? So that's why in OSHE, this is one of the regulation. OSHE.
Doctor?
Hmm?
Yeah, it's better now.
In the OSHE, this is one of the regulation under the OSHE 1994. So there are two tables basically under the OSHE. Okay. And then the table, one of the things for every compound, they are permissible exposure limit, same like table 2. But if I'm not mistaken, for table 1, if you are exposed to the anything under the table 1, you have to go for mandatory medical surveillance. Mandatory. But if table 2, regular. I mean, even some company, like big company like Titan Chemical Company, they like every worker must go for medical checkup every year, compulsory. Like public servant, uh, It's like self-discipline. Like if you want to go, you want to don't want to go. So the combination of concentration plus contact time or permissible exposure, we get the exposure, permissible exposure limit. So this is the burns of corrosive chemicals. And okay, we come to the act and regulation related to chemical usage. So they are in FMA related the regulation, the Factory Machine Act related to chemical usage. Like for example, lead regulation, asbestos, mineral dust. So it stated how the requirement, safety measure, and so on. And under OSHA, okay, we have class here, class regulation. Class is regarding the Msds, material safety data sheet or labeling. It is more like labeling. How to properly identify or label the chemical. And they also ICOP, this for code operative, and this one USH, okay, it exposure limit. Like I mentioned, there are two table 1, table 2, depending on the where is the chemical is on the table. So there are actions, and there are other acts or that handle the regulation on chemical like waste management in switch. So this is the regulation. Okay, see in the thing use. They are, hang on, why this is cut off. To regulation, hang on. Only one. Anyway, there are two regulation you need to be aware of regarding chemical use, and then another one is class. But this one is explaining about the use. Okay, class. Okay, first about use and the arrangement in the regulation. There are parts of the regulation. Like for example, identification of chemical, chemical register, how to and how to comply with the exposure limit. So, who perform the medical surveillance? There is a person called OSHD. OSHD is the occupation health doctor. They are basically doctor, but with certification to focus. Not all. They are among the doctors, the medical doctors. Some of them are certified, okay, to focus or to can do medical surveillance. Medical surveillance like check uh, people who are working. That's why, and their duties, if they found out, like for example, this worker have developed leukemia, for example, so it is his responsibility to report to the DOSH, Department of Safety and Health. They don't even have to and then the same time they inform the employer. So if the employer say that, why didn't you tell us first? No, that's not how it works. The OSHD will immediately tell DOSH and also the employer, the boss. So they are all aware. And how to comply with this? I mean, how, like, let's say, who do the assessment, okay, on measuring whether the in, like, say, in the station, okay, working place, they look, who going to look at the process and assess the permissible exposure limit. There is one called as CHRA, chemical hazard risk assessment. These are personnel with chemical background. There are two types for permissible, and then there's another one. I think yesterday I have explained about that. But they do look into like a permissible level, and then they will report, okay, to the management. Okay, what are the findings? And also here that the assessment of risk as CHRA, they do that. Action to control exposure or the regulation. Also in the use there are labeling and relabeling, but not as intense in the class regulation. There's another one related to class regulation, and there are others regulation like record keeping. If I'm not mistaken, 30 years. Any records or we have to put. And so this is there are regulation on medical surveillance. Okay, the OSHE, that's what I mentioned. OSD. Our occupational health doctor do the medical surveillance. Okay, so like there are other regulation like information, instruction, training. That's why in any organization, when they handle a lot of chemical, they rely on consultancy and the training on how to handle. So same people who are CHRA, certified CHRA, can give the training. Okay, they must have like chemical backgrounds. Okay, they check and first, okay, they will like do the early visit, check list of chemicals. They ask, okay, the organization or all the lab to, okay, come out with a list of chemical they are using, and then they will look into the working place one by one. Like CHRA will look like, so for example, in lab that have that, what do you call the chamber, smoke chamber or something, smoke chamber, and only them, this CHRA is qualified to evaluate and also suggest any improvement, and then verify. Sometimes they are also qualified to provide or to develop or to set up the smoke chamber. If it's not going that process, so it's not going to be certified. So it's a broad area, uh, and also very important job prospect. If you are very interested in safety, especially chemists background students or graduates. And also we have class classification, labeling, and safety data sheet of hazardous chemical. This is much more intense. There are many items in the classification, like flashpoint, emergency procedure if you get contact with the or injured by the chemical, and then the material data sheet, what it is carcinogenic, is whether it is flammable, inflammable, blah 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 blah. We look into that. So these are the examples of audits happening in the UTM. So for example, this is chemicals workstation. Suppose there shouldn't be any food container. Any container must be properly labeled. Like what you see here, chemical is not labeled. Unknown. What kind of chemical? So this is audit on the lab, which has been, I don't know, whether it has been notified or by surprise, but better go by surprise. So you know what's happening. Like this what happened. See the chemicals on the floor, on the surface of the cabinets. You don't know what is that. Like this waste. Waste is not properly handled. LEV. It is basically for ventilation. I think LEV stand for, let me check. Local exhaust. Now, okay, local exhaust ventilation. So this is so they are handling chemical. It should be inside an LEV or a chamber that has a proper ventilation. Sometimes best one LEV they have like filter before they are released. Okay, they release whatever come out from the experiment, for example. And this LEV is, like I said, only CHRA person, and under there they have the hygiene technician. They are qualified to certified or suggest. Okay, when you appoint them, okay, they will look into the process. What are the proper LEV system? What are the quality? This one, okay, improper storage of chemical. Perhaps that is a cleaning soap, but still, those are chemical. So there are many more types of chemical in the industry. In the fertilizer, petrochemical, soap, oleochemicals, agrochemicals, paint, pharmaceutical. This is like okay, a storage place, neat and tidy. So the handler have a good, use a lab coat, face mask, helmet. Helmet. You may wonder why you need a helmet. Yeah, because they are high shelf, and the object could fall down to his head. So that's what you have to. And see at the floor there are signage telling, okay, the only let's say for example, only stroller can move along the signage, or the signage say, okay, don't walk too close to or too close to this signage, otherwise you will trip, hit the shelf. Okay, this is under this is basically sawdust. So it can get into the lungs. So it is very important to have awareness and properly train on how to understand of the chemical we are dealing or working with, and what most important, how to manage those chemical. First you need to know what is the chemical, and then you need to know how to handle. Like for example, when you handling the chemical, you must wear glove. For instance, you must wear goggle. You must wear some certain at some stage you have to wear uh, mask or mask with filters to avoid any inhalation of the fume of the chemical. This is an example of chemical inventory. So the material, list of material, this the synonym of the material or other names, and then the formula, the concentration, or and then CAS number is important. CAS number is the identifier of the chemical. Chemical, basically, you can find the CAS number from the material safety data sheet. Okay, and the category, the brand, mean the company, size, quantity, hazard. So hazard class, but there are table that classify what the hazard, and then the usage. You need to, in short, you need to have a, when you're handling with the chemical, you must have an inventory. I think now, okay, if you come to the lab, so you every time you purchase, okay, you have to update, okay, through the uh, assistant engineer, or okay, or to the lab assistant. So this is the chemical register. How to know whether it is hazardous or not? Read the material safety data sheet, or MSDS, or sometimes called as safety data sheet. So it is clear in the material data sheet. We will let you know whether the material is carcinogenic, for example. So in OSHE, regulation, there are two tables. So in the first table, okay, in OSHE CH 2000, there are two tables. Inside the tables, table 1 and table 2. Then basically in table 1, there are 600 chemical registered, and table 2, there are, I think, 34. So it's about classification more. Use more about the classification, and the class class 2013 as the name class is classify, okay, the chemical into 13 category. So like the name, number 2 compound, number 3 CHAS number, and number 4 and so on. It's not into the order. We look some of it. Storage, you have to check the type and of the chemical. For example, whether it is inflammable or flammable, corrosive or not corrosive. And then classify it according to the proper type and select or find a proper storage cabinet, and then you cannot label or collect them according to name or alphabetically A to Z, because some of them cannot get together or cannot be combined. Even their fumes, okay, may react, react and then cause a fire, for example. And always good to have a secondary container to avoid spillage. Okay, this is like redundancy. In safety, normal to have redundancy. Safety is normal to have redundancies. If you do this in your fridge, it will not be that practical because it will take spaces. But in safety, redundancy sometimes are required. And yeah, budget supposed not to be limited. This is what I explained. Do not put chemical together according to the alphabetically. Some of them very reactive to others kind of material, and some of them flammable or corrosive, so there are proper cabinet for them. I think UTM have a centralized chemical lab. If the chemical is very technically very dangerous or carcinogenic, for instance, they will ask you to keep the chemical in a centralized place. So this is a common sense, more like a common sense. Something very corrosive, but any chemical shouldn't be put higher than basically higher than above your head, if possible. Sometimes storage is very limited, but you can organize wisely. So if you need to use high storage, don't put hazardous or corrosive on the top. Don't want to any that when you try to take it down, it could like spill on your body, for instance. And also have a good SOP. Let's say provide a ladder or a step ladder so that kid don't have to reach. You just go to the ladder and then properly take it down. Or if too high, don't try to reach. Ask someone who are taller. So be wise, be careful, and always think of safety. And then also do not use proper container, type of containers. Like here, do not use drinking or food material. See here, there's a thermos. Even there is a thermos, don't put a thermos. You don't use a thermos. You never know. Sometimes like okay, you use it to put chemical and then you clean it, and then it's empty, it's dry. Only you know that container has been used for chemical. But when someone found it and then okay, alamak, this is very nice, I want to use it for my coffee or so on. So careful. don't put food is close to chemical or eat in near to chemicals. And upright to avoid spillage. Okay, this is labeling under the use. Every have a must have a labeling. These are the items, or and at least the item of the labeling. Product identifier. See the CHAS number. CHAS number is like if you Google the number, it will appear. What is the like this one 7697-37-2. You Google and then you will return the result nitric acid. And then there are hazard statement. Where do you find the hazard statement? See, cause severe burns and eye damage. When you know that this can cause severe burns and eye damage, so you have to use Google. And also may intensify fire. Oxidizer may promote. I think it's like fire catalyzer or something. So that, and then there are precaution statement. Keep to clothing, commercial material, protective, if in ice, okay. And then pictogram. Okay, pictogram shows the basically the meaning of the pictogram. We will look into that. And signal words is a quick indicator for you. Say danger, or you have to handle it very carefully. Technically, any acid basically depend on the mole or the concentration. But you treat every acid with dangerous. That's the that's a common I mean things that you can be very careful. So that's the example of labels. Again, so there are hazard pictogram, like this is skull. It means that it is very dangerous. Okay, and then I think this one is like cause injury if you inhale. And this pictograms corrosive, show liquid falling on hands, dripping on hand is like meaning corrosive. Hazard statement, precaution. Okay, do not supplier identification, cast number. So this is minimum, but this is not complete. You need to know. Okay, what to do? What to do when, like for example, what to do when you get contact into your eyes? It's not 100%. Okay, what is the treatment, for example? So that is in the class or the material safe data sheet, material safety data sheet. So that's much more elaborated. We're gonna skip that. So you can try to find. That's see. Calcium. MSDS calcium carbonate, for example. Yes. This is an example of material safety datasheet for calcium carbonate. So there are many, at least, these have 16. Okay, in class, they all stated 10. sorry, 13. But here is extended to 16. So you can read, like for example, accidentally release measure. Okay, clean up, evacuate if necessary. What is the identification? Is the name. Hazard identification. Section 2. Section T, composite. First aid measure. Okay, what happened if they are. So, in the label, you cannot find this. That's why if any accident, using the chemical, you need to find what is the MSDS. How, what to do. Okay, what is the first aid measure. Okay. So we take a 5-minute break. Alright, we resume. And see the section 5, fire fighting measure, use foam, dry, powder, I think. Uh, so they are advised for firefighter, accident release measure, environment precaution. Even for my environment, there are handling and storage, how to store, exposure control, physical and chemical properties. Here we can find the flashpoint. Yeah, flashpoint is not available. Stability and activity, toxicology, ecological information, how to dispose, transport information, regulatory information, and this is like chemical diamond. Chemical diamond. Okay, there's a number. Sometimes you see this. Okay. Uh, here in the blue, the diamond, same material that under emergency condition can cause significant irritation in terms of health hazard. Fire is not flammable. Reactivity normal stable. So the concern is more to hazard. So if 111, that's quite an issue. Okay, red signify the fire, blue health, yellow is reactivity. This is the chemical diamond. Sometimes on the label there are chemical diamond shown on the labeling. Okay, what is SDS? I explain you in details. Okay, material safety data sheet. So at least there are 13 items or 13 descriptions. It can be more. And this is an important measure that you must know. Always add acid to water. Add acid to water, not add water to acid. Why? Because you want to avoid any splash. If water splash, this is less severe. But if acid splash, it's different story. It's, okay. In class, basically in the Msds, there are pictograms. So these are the description of the pictogram. So for example, this represent explosive. This is flammable, oxidizing. This one like shadow with a star in the center. That's say health hazard. This picture corrosive. Skull means very acute toxicology. Remember what does it mean acute? Means that you could experience immediate effect. Acute toxicity. And this one like branch or dead tree with dead fish on the land. So this is hazardous to environment. I think not going to go through this one by one. So when dealing with chemicals, you must wear the goggles to be very careful. Always wear goggles. lab coats is a must in lab. Why you need to use the lab coat is the fabric is different from a normal cloth. If the fabric can withstand, could better when the surface has contacted with acid. And then if you have long hair, especially the girl, you must use or gather fasten the hair in a proper way. No personal items, all have to put on the shelf. Do not make sure that you are authorized. If even okay, that's why don't invite anyone like your friends to the lab without authorization. We are talking about safety. It's very, very serious. It's a matter of like life and death, accident and not no accident. Common sense. Do not drink and eat in the lab, and always clean or wash thoroughly the lab coat after you use it. Okay. Basically, these are the basic method or basic procedure or how procedure how to handle. So I think no problem here in UTM. All lab have been provided with PPE. Or if no PPE, especially when you are using specialized, chemical, or you check in the Msds what are the PPE required when so you can identify properly the suitable PPE, like up to the standard or up to the point that you have to use respiratory protection, for example. Use all the PPEs, lab coat, safety shoe. This one has like extra protection, like a I don't know what you call exactly, apron or something. Okay. Hang on. Chemical control measure based on the hierarchy of control. Hierarchy of control again. Okay, when you identify the hazard from the chemical, you can always look into the hierarchy of control. If this very for example, very have a high radiation, better eliminate that chemical. Ask third party lab to do it for you, or substitute the chemical. Engineering control again, okay, use like robotic arms. Administrative control is in terms of exposure. This is like especially in manufacturing, of course in the lab. The administrative of the school, if we talk about our lab, okay, must know how long you should be exposed, or what's the permissible exposure limit to certain chemical if you have to do the experiment. And then PPE is the listing you can do, but the common one that you see visibly or you experience PPE. So that is actually, again, I remind you, that's the least effective. There are others measure that you can consider, especially on the management side. They have given you procedure how to. So this is the sample of chemical exposure control. Okay, engineering control. This is an example of engineering control. Engineering control. There are fume board and also local.
Sorry, doctor. Are you sharing your screen?
Yes.
Because my window is still SDS here. I don't know for
Okay,
others.
okay. I think I share. I think I forgot that I was sharing Google Chrome.
Okay, all right.
Okay, I have to go back here. So the MSDS, I have explained about material safety data sheet. There are explanation on at least 13 description, at least according to the regulation, but it could be more. Like what I have shown you, there are 16. Again, I explain, always add acid to water. Why? To avoid splash. If you add water to acid, uh, so if the acid is could be splashing to your skin, for example. But these are the description or the meaning on the pictogram. On the it can either be on the MSDS or it could be on the label. So labeling is basically the short version, but the long version of the chemical is in the MSDS. So you don't have in the labeling or on the bottle, no, not enough space to put everything. Uh, so if you want to need to know more information about the chemical, you have to download the chemical. So how to download? Okay, Google the CAS number on the container label. How to get the MSDS, material safety data sheet. This sorry. So that's the pictogram meaning. Like for example, this is on the top here show about explosion, okay, and flammable, and this is like oxidizing, gas under pressure, corrosion, uh, and like health hazard shadow with an X or asterisk on the center, and so like environment. So these are the more description on the pictogram. This is the description for my exposure, flammable, and but sometimes the word inflammable also is used. That means the same meaning. Oxidizing means that uh, it does not burn, but it's produce enough oxygen as to for catalyzing fire. Compressed gas under pressure. It could be explode if heated or put more pressure on it. So always okay, the compressed gas keep away from heat, source of heat. Don't put it under the sun. Okay, and also don't put close to the open flame. Uh, acute toxicity very hazardous. If swallowed or inhaled, may lead to death. Very careful. That's why I have to pay this. If had see this, you have to use a goggle or wear the respiratory mask. Corrosive. Don't make sure don't contact with your skin or surface. Health hazard. Carcinogenic. This is important. The word here, carcinogenic, means can cause cancer. And toxic to reproductive system or specific organ means that you could not have babies if exposed to the material at the dangerous level. And this is for I explained about the environment effect. the hazard warning: do not inhale, swallowed, or touch without using protection like glove. Okay, do and don'ts: always use PPE. In short, you always use PPE, including the lab coats. And long hair, you must be carefully fastened and put nicely, so that you don't your hair that does not entangle, or perhaps basically hit any bottle or beaker and spill anything. Personal stuff is not allowed. Do not let anyone that you know, especially that you know, unauthorized. Always, if you never seen someone, approach and advise. For the sake of safety, you have to advise. You have to excuse me, you see someone I've never been there in the lab, you have to approach and then mention him that, okay, you are new students, okay, you need to actually be briefed by someone. Food and drinks are forbidden in all labs. That's common sense. And clean up your lab coats. So this basic handling. So to know what is the proper PPE, use refer to the material safety data sheet. How to know how to get the material data sheet? Okay, find out the CAS numbers, CAS. Use the proper protection. Okay, and the control and controlling measures, similar. We use the same concept. Hierarchy of control into control measure. Like instance, the chemical is very dangerous, so better outsource. If you still need to do this testing, outsource somewhere, or substitute the chemical, or use the engineering control. Like we going to see later an example, and then administrative control. This is the responsibility of the administrative to check or audit everything is in order, whether the list of the chemical is there and sort it out. And PPE, remember that is the last or least thing in the control measure. Means that the effectiveness is actually the lowest. But I believe that is the most accessible control measures for everyone. This is an example of engineering control measure in the hierarchy of control. These are fume board and local exhaust ventilation, and both usually is connected to a extension or basically a conduit will go to a filter, and then this filter make sure some of the chemical not be even allowed to go out to the environment. It will be go into a container. It's like there are material that can absorb everything, and at some time it will full. So this only this engineering control is, like I said before, is, can be specification or can be given or can be certified by high-end hygiene tech and hygiene technician under the CHRA, Chemical Hazard Risk Assessment. Again, this hygiene tech usually chemical engineering background. Okay, person who have qualified as a hygiene tech is basically have chemical engineering background. Okay, this is the admin work SOP, standard operating, safe operating procedure, work instruction, chemical waste management. Don't reuse other chemicals, other type of chemical container to refill any waste. This one, like this is the level, but actually it contain of I think it's sodium hydroxide, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, this is the actually the labeling. So based on the labeling method, so you can quickly write down the name of the material, quantity. This is for waste. Okay, for waste management, and it is put into a container and properly disposed. It cannot be keep. So there are cases where staff. There was a case of staff in even in an industry, they didn't know that the chemical is carcinogenic. So imagine that chemical has been sitting in the lab for, let's say, 10 years. He has been there for 10 years. So he has been exposed basically some degree of the fume of the chemical. Okay. So because some chemical, they are not the container is not that good, not airtight. Even the cabinet is not vacuum. So eventually the staff got leukemia because exposed to the material or to the chemical. So usually in UTM, when they are identify the waste, they will like put it in the proper place and then call the waste chemical waste disposal team from the central lab, and it is some handled by a usually third party company. They know how to handle, how to dispose. In case of emergency, chemical, like this is the instruction. First, you need to be aware of which emergency plan or emergency response that should be taken. So you need to read the Msds, the material, read the the material safety data sheet. That's why maybe it's good that if you have the copy of the chemical, copy of the Msds before doing any experiment. All. But worst thing to happen, if happen, you quickly find out or Google or download the material safety data sheet. And every lab, chemical lab especially, they have this emergency or response equipment like a shower or eye washer. Oh. So best practice to have a spill kit, an eye washer, SOP and instruction on the wall, and also waste segregation method, so that not all waste is thrown into the same container. And usually, if there any violation or misconduct, or during or after the audit, uh, so the NC, if any misconduct, the non-conformance report, and CR will be given if you not comply. And worst thing, you are now will be not allowed to use the lab until you rectify the issue. Okay. And make sure it does not happen again. Right. So that's done with the most intense part. So let's see, let's look at the thing last part. Which is the ergonomics. So it's actually the pros. This was designed, okay, this tool to as a proper analysis to identify whether to actually see whether you are exposed to economic or ergonomic hazard. But in this professional course, we are not going to like do all the exercise or tools. So you see here, we're going to see what is the by meaning what is ergonomics, and then see what the ergonomic risk factor at your workplace or even at your everyday living space, and then also to address solution, how to resolve if there is any risk or ergonomic risk to prevent any injury, any future injury. So basically, ergonomic is like know what is your body needs, what is body needs in terms of the requirement, okay, that can avoid any sustainability or any possibility to sustain injury with the technology system we are using. That is basically ergonomics. Like in the picture shown here, there, um, an animal, like let's say they can operate a computer like giraffe, so they have a very long neck. So the ergonomic position is that, okay, one of it, the eye level, okay, must be basically the eyesight. The eyesight must be perpendicular with the screen surface. For example, and make sure there is no screen on your neck or on your back. That is one of it. So why do we need to talk about ergonomic? Maybe you don't see it yet here, but when we go to the industry, in manufacturing especially, so there are workers doing jobs or doing tasks, and some tasks, okay, require repetition. Some tasks require the worker to be standing. Some tasks require the worker to lift something heavy, for instance. So compensation leading to ergonomic injuries is very expensive. That's why you have to know about ergonomics. Okay, the best way how to handle. It's it can be seen like uh, related to the how people do their work in the workplace, and also how they deal with workstation. I mean, the stress, the ergonomic stress, deal with the workstation, and related to the equipment tool design. So if the tool design, okay, cause the worker, like let's say for example, to sit or to stand awkwardly, okay, or to make a awkward position, so it is not ergonomic. And also environmental factor, we will look into that, like poor illumination, lighting, not enough light, or too bright, or too hot, or too cold. So they are related to ergonomic. And also repetitive. Repetitive also part of the ergonomic hazard. So if you use your mouse too long, repeat it too many times at a short period of time, you could sustain injury on your finger, for instance. Same like awkward posture when you are not sitting properly, not standing straight, or sitting too long, of course. And also improper lifting, where when you are lifting item, you should not bend your back. So major concern for ergonomic hazard is repetitive strain injury or work-related musculoskeletal disorder. We look into that. So what is MSD? Well, not MSDS. MSDS is Material Safety Datasheet, but MSD. MSD is work-related musculoskeletal disorder, WRMSD, or repetitive motion injury, or RMI, or repetitive strain injury, or and most popular MSD, musculoskeletal disorder. Musculoskeletal disorder. So this basically disorder that affect your muscle joints, or your nerve, or your vascular system. So you can feel pains between on the joint, or place that have a lot of nerve, on your neck, on the back of your neck, for example. Okay, and anywhere they have a lot of nerve. So one cause of this MSD is the keyword is repetition and force. I mean, repetition and repetition and sustained exertion. So mean that you do something again and again, or motion. Okay, like moving something of one place to another place. Okay, and only certain part of your body is actually feeling the pain or feeling the force. For example, like lifting. So you are continuously lifting, have to lift something on the production line. Okay, or packaging something on the production line. So repeat the same thing. So it may affect your hand, wrist, elbow, or arm, and so on. So it is injury that occur over time. It's not sometimes. Most of the time, it's not that immediate. It could appear or emerge after a year, after a month, after weeks. Okay, so common ergonomic injuries. You can cause. You can sense the pain or numbness, tingling. Like for example, carpal tunnel syndrome on the wrist. Sometimes, like when you awkward position, your hand is not level with your mouse. Okay, so if and then your for example your seat is too low, so your wrist is basically bending when you try to when you are using the mouse, computer mouse. So that could lead to carpal tunnel. And the other syndrome or illness that can be seen here. Carpal tunnel, okay, you can feel this area on the picture here. That's the area usually where the carpal tunnel happen. So carpal tunnel can be treated if not severe. Go to rehabilitation. Go to the physio. But if we were in some cases very serious, so you have to go for surgery. Okay, tendinitis, inflammation in pain tissue that connect muscle to bones, it's like swollen, internal swollen. You you cannot see it, but when you like feel it, you can see, but not necessarily when you every time you do some tasks you feel like the pain. But that is just muscle sore after doing a hard job. But we are talking about injuries that persistent. Okay, is there even let's say you are not working, you have on leave for 1 month, 2 months, even the pain is still there. So it could be that you are sustaining ergonomic injuries. But to make sure, you go and go to the doctors, get medical assessment. So there are key factors to cause ergonomic injuries. We will look into that. We can use the same concept. Identify the hazard by looking at the process. Do assessment on the working place. Assess yourself. Assess other people. Don't tell them you want to assess. You just observe. So how? Okay. So repetitive may is the one of the factors that leading to MSD. Where you doing something, some motion, motion over and over, that actually put the stress the same on the same muscle and tendon. So the severity basically is measured by severity of risk. Okay. Basically, it's measured by the repetition, including the speed, the number of muscle involved, and then the required force. Even this ergonomic topic, I know is it's a study area found that like doctoral study on how to identify and then qualitatively measure the ergonomic risk. And sometimes like you are just like we are doing now, staring on the computer, but we assume that at least we are doing for 2 days. So but even if you are using computer for yourself to doing job or assignments, so if you measure yourself, okay, you are at least sitting on the computer for 4 hours per day. That means that you have to do some measure. So one of the things that you can do, you do some relax, exercise. Uh, on the 2020 rules, we look into that. Example of repetitive work. So the operator have to assemble microchip or PCB board. So they are doing the same thing over and over, same material. As another example of repetition, okay, assembling components, and this is furniture or cleaning the surface of furniture. Erf Force, the SKD is the amount of physical effort required, okay, to perform a task or maintain control of equipment or tools. So, so the force basically depend on how what the type of grip, and also grip. I mean, okay, the size of the grip on your palm, the weight of the object. So look into the body posture, type activity, and duration of the task. So this is like, for example, lifting 75 pound of one time, or 55 pound or more than 10 times per shift, or 25 pound below the knee or above the shoulder, pinching 2 pound, or 4 for 2 or more total hours per shift. So this is example of force, pushing a stack of material on the conveyor, lifting to stack, lifting that require 2 people. This one lifting only 1 person. This one pulling on the basically trolley. That's require a force exertion of the on the hands. And this job require gripping. You need to grip a machine or an equipment or tools to do the polishing, for instance. Okay, awkward posture, basically repeated or prolonged reaching, twisting, bending, kneeling, squatting, working overhead with your hand on or arm, or holding fixed position. So there are dynamics and static. They involve dynamic and static motion, like twisting. There are some motion that have to raise. For twisting, you have to raise your, for example, your elbow. Sometimes above your as higher than your shoulder. For example, working with hands overhead, you have like reaching hand overhead, like reaching something from top or to bottom, moving with your hands on the top or to the bottom or the other way. Kneeling or squatting for 2 hours per day. Kneeling when carrying or lifting something. Working with back, neck, or wristband for 2 hours. So some potential fix use portable stool, whereas say like a chair, like a small chair that can be used to make sure that you don't need to raise your hand over the head too high, like a step ladder. Turn or move the work. Turn or move of the work means that the workplace, instead of like you are moving, the workplace can be moving. And use frequent mini breaks. Have a small breaks. Don't like do the job or the task all the time during the shift. Have some breaks. Okay, these are the awkward position. Like you are bending. So see, this is a conveyor belt. So to push the stack of cabinet wall. So the worker has to bend. This one is twisting. So the shoulder at least level with the shoulder. So we know that is an awkward position. This one is bending. Shouldn't be bending like this. Okay, find solution lah. How now we look at the problem first. And other than awkward posture, we have contact stress. See the hazard. So far we have seen force, awkward posture, repetitive motion like before, and contact stress. So what is contact stress? Basically, the body or part of the body is pressed against a hard or sharp edges. So it will like basically introduce a high amount of pressure to the nerve, tendon, or blood vessel. Example, you can use your palm on your hand as a hammer regularly. You grip the hammer. So basically, when you grip the hammer, and then you hit, you use the hammer to like hit the nail. So basically, that is introducing, mixing the pressing, your inner part of your arm, okay, against the surface of the hammer grip. Typing while resting your arm or wrist on the hard desk edge. You see, that's I think our like our normal thing. That's why if you use the mouse, make sure that one of it, make sure that your wrist has a good support, and also your elbow have a good support. Okay, don't let your basically don't let your elbow hanging. So because it will introduce pressure on the joint. This is other example of contract stress when you are see weight of the plank on the surface of the hand. Similarly, and then vibration. Okay, vibration also. uh, important part in the ergonomics. AERF, the ergonomic risk factor, where when you use tools, okay, like drills, saw, grinders, jackhammer, so they have vibration. And when you use it on the regular basis, it can lead to potential damage. So one of the methods is by using vibration dampened glove, but and then also use job rotation. The vibration dampening glove, basically PPE control measure, or job rotation administrative control, or modified clutching mechanism on the tool itself, where the tools it does not create a significant amount of vibration. So that's under in the engineering tools. This is an example of vibration where the worker use a drilling machine to make holes. Right, so ergonomic risk factor that can cause eye strain. The sources of eye strain, improper lighting. So you need to do your work under enough lighting, and also don't work under glaring sunlight. And when you are driving, for instance, or when you are outside, when it's sunny, use eyewear or glasses. And then viewing angle and distance also can cause strain. Don't stare on something very far for a long time. And others, like you can see, like dust on screen. Basically, your screen is not the visibility has gone very poor. So this is a solution for eyesore. One of the method can be used to reduce basically eyesore. Use this law or rule, the 20-20-20 rule. So every 20 minutes, you stay on your computer. Take a break. Take a break for 20 seconds. Basically, look at some object. Better to look some green object, at least 20 feet away. Or in this rule is 20 feet for 20 seconds. Not 20 minutes, 20 minutes. Not 20 minutes, 20 feet for 20 minutes. But 20 seconds, last every 20 minutes. Okay, make sure that you give your eyes some rest. So these are some of the what we can do to avoid any ergonomic risk factor. We try as best as possible to so that the user can maintain neutral posture during performing task. Like exo like not like they are have like exoskeleton that can help people to like lift heavy object, okay, and then reduce the strain on on their body or on their back, and also adjust your workstation to remove the risk factor. Uh, we look at the example. What's the proper supposed to be the best? Basically the best posture. Okay, but sometimes we have been used to our position. Is very hard to uh, adjust, but at least not too awkward. And have a rotate between jobs. Use mechanical assistant like trolley, hoister, and then use body system for heavy task. At least two people or more. Like, okay, company can also use moving crane on the top. So every time worker when they want to move item, okay, they can like tie the item, and then the crane can move. Then the crane is basically can be motorized. That's for an example. Since the neutral supposed to be the neutral seated posture, neutral seated posture basically it imitates the neutral standing posture. So the seated position, put your hip, see your back, hip, see lower back, and knee joint at 90 degree or slightly greater than the angle. When in use, your elbow and joint should be at 90 degree, so at level basically. And the use a armrest to support your elbow. And wrist and joint should be maintained as possible. Maintain as straight as pressure as possible. So you see, this is like an ideal where your eyesight, where it should be, where is the keyboard, and then your leg should have a footrest. This is an example. And then your back have a lumbar support. And then the armrest. It's not only this, but okay, sometimes like you doing job like painting the wall. Okay. Sometimes when you paint the wall high, you have to adjust your, or you have to like tilt up your head. Way how to reduce that? Don't tilt your head, but roll your eyes up. That's one way. But of course, that also will cause your eye to sore. So the lab stool, I don't think every lab have the same lab stool. So you technically have to adjust the lab stool according to your height. So don't be too low, don't be too high. Adjust according that makes you have a neutral position. And always sit at your back. And if you sit back and your feet dangle, I mean your feet is basically like on the dangling. Like if you sit and your leg or your foot is or not reaching the ground, you can use that the foot rest. Here foot ring, here you have a foot rest ring. To try to like tilting the seat forward or use a seat wedge on to work in for posture. You put the seat wedge on your back. Mm, Sometimes you can use a pillow, put on your back, give you some support. And always try to work at the bench, cut out. Cutouts can help you get close to your work while sitting against back of your chair. Cutouts, I think, is in this area at the bottom there. And don't basically jut your chin forward when working. Okay, like pointing your chin forward. Some people like wordly do that. They'll adjust the position carefully. And then anything like item, like you are doing transferring samples on one vial to another vial. So make sure the vial is within your reach. And if you are standing for a long period, use supportive shoes and cushion mats. This is an example when using the microscope. So see here the position. Okay, your back have a rest, and your foot is rest on the foot ring rest, and then the shoulder is straight, and back support take weight of the elbow. Back support, I think your shoulder is straight, so your back basically support your weight or your elbow. So example of bad posture and good posture. Good posture is when like you are close. Okay, your leg is inside under the wedge of the table. But this one, okay, there's a gap. Making your back bending. It's not straight. So make sure that your back is straight. So always try to be as close as possible to the equipment when you are doing work, or meaning that your leg is inside, and then don't let anything, any item take that space under the lab bench. Avoid contact with hard edges. If you have padded support, that's good. And don't extend your arm too long. Try to keep it very close to the body. This is just maybe it's relevant for some of you, especially chemists or biologists. Maybe not that common for like other engineering school, but it's good to know for your knowledge. Always sit supported against the backrest of the chair. Sit or stand close to your workbench. Count out, elevate your chair rather than reaching for the pipette. The keyword is there. Don't if you have to reach something, that means that your posture is not good. And then don't like grip the pipette too hard. Use a minimum pressure and take 1 or 2 minutes every 20 minutes. So, to best thing that you can do when we talk about ergonomics, I think exercise is the closest thing to the use fountain. So if you exercise regularly, okay, get that basically sweat out of your body. So it will help you not only your health, it also relax your muscle, but don't overdo it. And before you go to work or before you sit down on your working place, do stretch. Okay, this is example of stretching exercise. Okay, this is a stretching method. When you stretch, make sure that you feel that stretch. Don't just bend it to just for the sake of doing it. But when you stretch, don't put force too much. But try when you stretch, try to feel it. Okay. Uh, so there's a after this. If you have any question, like I say, if you have anything, you just can interrupt, no problem. But what we're going to do next we're going to look at, hang on, hierarch. We're going to look at hierarch to how to look at the hierarch, how to identify the hierarch, and then use the form. Uh, so we take a rest, and then we will continue in 11:35. We will resume at 11:35. Okay, class. I want to show you before we go proceed on the last part of the class. So you see here, so this is actually hierarch or hazard identification risk assessment guidelines provided by the Department of Safety and Health, Occupational Safety and Health under the Ministry of Human Resources. This is 2018 guideline. Actually explain, you can read and give you what is the I think most of the thing that we have covered have been discussed. So just want to show you how example that we do observing our environment, our workplace, and we classify or we write down the the hazard. And basically you can do this with this exercise yourself, or this practice yourself. by looking at your surrounding at your house, okay, or even to go to any nearest public area, okay, public area, also on the campus, and look for hazard. Now, the in a hierarchy, the purpose is to identify hazard, and as I explained before, hazard uh, hazard is measured by calculating the risk. Risk. And there are two components in the risk, which is likeliness, L, or likelihood, multiply with severity. And likeliness or likelihood, so we indicate using the following value. For example, if we look at the we identify the hazard, and we think that, okay, for example, that hazard is most likely to happen. How do you determine is how many times has this event happened in the past? Let's say here the guidelines say, for example, a small spill on a bleach from container when filling a spray bottle is most likely to occur during every shift. If you think that has a spilling of chemical, okay, is likelihood is always happen, we put 5. Where severity can be divided by this category based upon increasing level of severity to an individual has the environment or property. So you look at the hazard. Let's say, for example, if say the severity is 5, this is disaster, catastrophic. Usually 5, we don't put 5 unless it is like involve the national level. See, like a fatal, we to put 4. Serious, we put 3. Minor and eligible. So risk can be calculated by using the formula. Then, when we find out the level or the rating for each component of likelihood and severity, we get the number or the value, and we refer to this matrix. So this matrix shows you the value. Like for example, if our value is 15 and above, it means that it's high. High basically require immediate action. So you need to stop the work. When your risk is in the red region, means that the work or the area have to be cordoned off or have to be secured. No one should get into that. And if medium, okay, high, sorry, if high, you have to stop whatever like say there is a work doing on the workplace, have to stop and then do immediate action and rectify immediately, and no work shall be done until the problem or the risk is removed. So medium, okay, it require a planned approach to control the hazard. So the action taken must be documented on the risk assessment form during the date for completion. Similar or the first one, you have to write down the everything or the date. So if low, there's no further necessary or no further action is required. But if it can be resolved quickly, then you write down. And also the control measure depend on the description or the value we get. And to write down all everything, there's supposed to be a table. Yeah, this is basic table. And example, I think I need. So it's the guideline given by DOSH showing the hierarchy form. I think I have to. Where in this hierarchy form is a company name, location, who approve this report, who done the report, the date, review date, new review, and what are the high hazard, and what is the work that involve or activity that is the hazard, and what can cause the effect, the risk analysis, recommended control measure, and PIC order. For instance, here the name of company, to F Furniture Enterprise, process or location wood cutting or panel section, approved by the manager, and then they conducted by the supervisor. So basically, hierarchy can be done by everyone or every one that you ask to do. They can write down the hazard and then show it to the SHO, and SHO give it the like for instance, in the campus, the dean will approve. So what are the here example hazards has been identified? For example, loading the machine with wood. So the hazard is the cutting blade, which can cause cut of first aid type. Existing risk control, if any, safe work process or safe work practice. Likelihood, because there are many mean that the work is repetitive, maybe loading the machine with wood, and on the wood there are, I think, cutting blades or cutting blade like the knife or the cutting blades. So you put that 4 high, like so there are maybe 2 shift, put 4, and then severity is 1 because it could only produce minor. So you recommended to measure, use leather hand glove. I think there is, it's not only cutting blades. Okay, It's only cutting. Descriptive must be like better lah. Cutting blades with bare hand and with no hand protection. So that's better lah. So the descriptive, this is the minimum lah. Minimum cutting blades. But when we see the recommended measures, we could clearly understand. Okay, the issue is not using hand glove when handling or using the cutting blade. Now we look at the high region, high 15 above, 16 above, in the green zone. Like this, repair and maintenance of the machine, unguarded machine, unsafe work practice. Serious cut from blade and getting caught in rotating existing cover on button. You see, this immediately done. 4x4 16 to make delay stuck button. This is what it is recommended lah. Next control measure, but this is the existing one. So the issue has been quickly resolved and then have been closed. So the issue is that the machine is unguarded. I don't really 100%, but what I understand here, it has to do with the operation of the machine. So here is high. I think the other thing that we can list out, the recommended measure here, you can list according to the types. Okay, engineering control, isolation, if possible. Okay. Now, look at other example here, which K20, severity is 20. Erratic working platform. Erratic working platform from basically like a staging. There's an unguarded floor or unguarded area of the staging. So falling, we can cause effect head injury or due to falling object or falling platform. Safety helmet and housekeeping. So they quickly do that. That is the existing. But for this case, actually, they have to put a note there. Stop work because this is very high. No work shall be done until the recommended control measure here. That is fencing. Fencing which like marking the area and avoid anyone from coming into the working area of the working platform. So this is a risk very high. Means that the work have to be stopped until the measure is really taken care. And due date here you have to put ongoing. Or if it's already done here, means that this is the existing, means that the worker is wearing the safety helmet and do the housekeeping. That's good. But this is what is being suggested immediately, and they do it. And if this completed, then write complete. If it's say this ongoing, and put notes that require what's the timeline when it should be done. So let's see high rec. what we do in the college. So we look at the area, around the area, our surrounding, and for example, we look into the student room. So according to the regulation, we do not allow student to cook inside the room because it is not a proper designated area. You see, there are here the extension overload may cause overload. This is an example of hazard that we find out. It could be several things, which is cooking inside room, which can cause fire, or which, and then also can damage the wall. Here on the parking lot, this is the open area. What we found here, these are the basically the road ledge, you can say. It's basically a guideline for cars to make sure when they park, they do not drive their car over into the drain. So that's basically a curb. So here, the curb is maybe hit by unsuspecting student. Okay, didn't notice or was not paying attention, drive too fast, okay, and too far in the marking, so they hit the curb, and then the curb basically crumble. So there are several things. You see here, hazard like heavy object on the debris on the road, and then quickly the action. This one quickly the action. What we do, we confiscated, and this one what we do, we use administrative. This one is administrative control. We confiscated, and also this is administrative control. We put basically we put tape, warning tape. This is falling object. Work process, the walking path of students. So they are falling object. Actually, there are two things. They also have biological hazard, which is the monkey. Falling object, but it's the object. Some of the object is already on the ledge, on the gutter, and waiting to fall. So we look into the measure, and quickly we have report to the asset and management, because it's a high rise, cannot remove it immediately, and also in the same time we put this tape, and then not allowing anyone to go through here because the severity is high. What you can see here, so student when they go back, they don't like their cars to be exposed to the weather, so they use the car cover. The problem is that car cover is not sturdy or strong enough to stay on the car during windy days. See here, it's like roll over on the front of the car, and what happened? There are stagnant water. When there are stagnant water, there are dengue. So what we do, we remove the cover and notify the user, so that administrative control. Similar to this area in one of the blocks actually under construction. somehow there is a container, okay, by the contractor. They put there, and it was left unattended for a long time. So they are stagnant water, similar. They are biological hazard, possible biological hazard. Okay, this one like open drainage. I think it's not the sharp edges of the drainage cover, and we quickly basically what we will try, we quickly repair this, or this is open with a repair, and inform the user, okay, do not, okay, sometimes the cleaner lift it up and forgot to put it down back. And the next step that we suggest is to replace other type, because this type, when the joint, some part of the joint or close to the hinge, okay, step by people, it will tend to flip by itself. So also the same, this is like, okay, see, they are falling I mean, there are the objects hanging on the gutter due to the monkey that pushed the basically the roof, and we put the signage and then hold on the area. This is untidy or substandard this, living place or housekeeping. So immediately, similar this, okay, this may not severe, but yeah, good practice to identify. This is basically maybe wasps, or not wasps, but something that live make a mud house, the insect, flying insect, and then we quickly remove. That's bad monkey. So we try to use a dummy snake. This is what we had identified. Worker not using, this is not what we have identified, not using the earmuff. Okay, we have report. Agronomic. So we also report, but say it's actually the stuff under there. This is also what they have identified in the storeroom. So everything untidy. There are cleaning material before on the top. So we quickly do the correction when to we clean it. And this is the hygiene of the cafe. This is like 2 years back. It's not recent. Now we have a new cafe owner. But according to student, that the standard is substandard, we actually do, okay, the risk assessment. So result of the hierarchy, I can, okay, show you what is in Malay. I will help you go through. So this person who conduct, this is the core campus, area of the campus. This is what they have identified. It's basically the activity on the entry point of the emergency entry point. I mean, the student go in and go out. Actual potential hazard is the attached roof. The attached roof due to the monkey or animal. So what it could happen potentially, injury to the head. So the existing, what we use isolation, which is actually a part of the engineering control. Look the tape, go use the monkey trap, use the dummy snake, and then put the signage, element control. And this, and then here we put the what we practice we put the value of the risk after we have done the existing control measure. So for us, likelihood is just 2 because it is in an emergency exit. We assume that students don't use it a lot. Severity, okay, it may cause, to our understanding, might occur. The likelihood, I mean, not in terms of the student going into that place for the object to fall down every day is not is low. Severities can cause serious injury because the object, to our presumption, is not that big. Yeah? And we put that 6. Like for example, here parking area. So the car has hit the curb, and then the possibility, the hazard is to injury to the parking user, and then damage to car. Remember that it can hazard source or a source or act or situation that have the potential for harm in terms of human injury, ill health and damage to our properties and also our environment. So what we do, we put the warning tape and then put the signage, and then we announce to all the user in the group media, social media, or like WhatsApp, about the that be very careful to if you're using the parking place. And then we say, so in our finding, mostly about the facility, mostly about and one example of here, the landscape user do not use earmuff. That is unsafe act, not condition. So we have the control here. We have done it where make sure they use the PPE. So this is the result that we risk level after we have done the existing control measure. And this is our suggestion. Substitute the blower for higher standard that have a muffler, for example. Muffler or silencer, so that it doesn't make a lot of noise. Okay, that's sample of what we have done so far. Okay. Now next, what I need to discuss with you about the assessment.